I mean, Benny has had such a prominent role, not just in Albuquerque, but New Mexico. If you go to northern New Mexico and you mention the name Benny Naranjo, they know who you're talking about. I came to law school in 1972, and Benny was in our first year class, and he lived right across the street from the law school. And he almost immediately took us under his wing. Benny had had some political experience, some life experience that many of us who were first-generation law students, let alone first-generation college students, gone straight through college and into law school, could really benefit from it. Benny was so kind. That's the first thing that struck me about Benny. He was a very kindly person. He wanted to make sure everybody was okay. When he'd come to school every morning, he'd check on everybody, look everybody in the eye, shake hands, slap them on the back, make sure everybody's okay. When there was hesitancy, he'd talk to them and make sure that everybody was on the right track. And he's been that way as long as I've known him.
I got to town in January of 1981 and started practicing in Metro Court. And Benny Naranjo practiced a fair bit in Metro Court. I mean, he had an office that was just a couple blocks away, and he came in pretty often. And I was, really kind of wet around the ears. Benny was one of those lawyers who would be kind to a new lawyer, and he was, and we got to be friends. He's a hard guy not to be a friend of.
When I met Benny Naranjo, I didn't know anything about his background. I moved here from Colorado, knew nothing of his family, nothing about him. And the first thing I knew about him was that he knew good places to eat. And also, when I would go with him to a restaurant, people knew him. He knew people. And that was always first name, Benny. He seemed to be one of these people known by his first name. And that's how I first got to know him.
If I had to describe Benny in just 3 words, I couldn't. But if I had to pick 3, I'd say he is warm. He is supportive, and most of all, he is kind. He goes out of his way to make sure that people are comfortable. He goes out of his way to make sure that everybody is on track. If he senses tension, he's a very good person at talking people off the ledge. I saw him do that with my law students. I've seen him do that with his opponents in law practice, and with me a couple of times, I have to admit.
Well, thinking about Benny, I mean, one word that would come to mind certainly is commitment. I mean, Benny's practice when I knew him, through Metro Court mostly, he had, in a sense, a small practice. He had clients who had very mundane problems, but serious ones. And a lot of these people didn't have an awful lot of money. Benny comes from Rio Arriba County, which is not a very well-to-do county. But he would always try to work things out when they were difficult and have a conversation on behalf of his client. He was always honest. I mean, and the way he felt about people was absolutely genuine. I mean, his heart went into his practice and was extended to, certainly to his clients, but the people that he dealt with too.
We were prosecutors together, and I had moved here from Colorado. I didn't particularly know the New Mexico court system, so he immediately, I felt like he took me under his wing and helped me get to know the New Mexico court system better. So he was a mentor, and I think many of the young people in the DA's office, he was a mentor to them as well. He's the kind of guy who is a living role model of being a prosecutor. Your heart's got to be in the right place. If you're going to do justice, your heart's going to be in the right place. You got to temper it with mercy. And Benny was a living example of how you do that. And that made him very special.
If I was asked what Benny's greatest legal accomplishment was, I would think that I would just have to say his persistent commitment to justice. There's not one case I can point to. I can point to a lifetime of helping people and making sure that the system worked for everybody. So I can't tell you one. I think it would be not fair to Benny to try to pick out one.
So I think it's an accomplishment to come into court with clients who don't don't have a lot of money, who are absolutely salt of the earth people, and Benny is too. I know that when you have to keep yourself afloat in kind of a small practice, and when things come in the door, it's a situation where those lawyers and the lawyers who care about their clients and continually exhibit that every time they come to court are really doing the law a great service. And that's a gift I think that Benny gave to the law, and I think it's that he certainly gave to the courts.
When I was starting in the DA's office in Los Lunas, there were attorneys there, baby attorneys just out of law school. Who did the young ones gravitate to? Who did the older ones gravitate to? It was Benny Naranjo. He had a certain outlook on how you should handle a case and what's important in a case. And his heart was in the right place. There were definitely other attorneys, younger attorneys, inspired them as well, and that was all part of the Benny magic.
What I can remember just off the top of my head is he was so popular among the students, and especially among the minority students. When we'd be sitting gathered waiting for class to start, and Benny would come in, the room would light up, and one of our friends, Jesus Lopez, nicknamed him Benny and the Jets. And so we could hear, if we heard Benny and the Jets, we knew Benny was here, and everybody would get excited, ready to go to school, because Benny was here. He would organize informal get-togethers after classes. I'm telling you, he was not just a role model for us, but he was making sure that we all stayed connected, that we stayed coherent, we stayed together as a group.
I am the person who nominated Benny Naranjo. He's an amazing person, and I am delighted that he is being recognized tonight.
Benny is deserving of this award not only because of all of his achievements, not only because of the kindness that he's shown to everyone, but because he's continued to serve as a role model. I was honored to be able to move for his admission to the practice of law in New Mexico, and Benny has helped me and helped so many people. I love Benny Naranjo. You guys couldn't have picked a better person for this award.
I remember thinking the moment I got the email from Justice V. Hill that Benny was up for this award, that there was something profoundly right about it. I mean, Benny is one of those lawyers who is a lawyer for other people. He doesn't think about getting rich from it. He doesn't think about handling gigantic cases that'll make an awful lot of law. He does think an awful lot about using the law to the best advantage of his clients and to the best service of being a lawyer. And also, he comes from the community, and he represents people. And UNM has always prided itself on having lawyers come out of this school that have that ideal. And Benny is one of those people who never is far from that idea. And I think that that's something that this law school should be honoring.
Hey, Benny, congratulations. We're so happy for you, so proud of you. I love you, Benny. Thank you for all you've done for me and everybody else.
Benny, I am delighted to be here to speak for you tonight. You richly deserve this award. It was a long time coming, and it's been a pleasure and a privilege to know you over the years, and I really appreciate everything you've done for me.
Benny, it's been an awful long time that we've known each other. It's been an awful long time that we've been friends. It's been an awful long time that I have known you and your work and the way you care about being a lawyer and the way you care about what a lawyer can do. And for that, I thank you for being an example and a friend, and I hope one of these days we're going to get to go fishing. And if your hands don't work so much, so well anymore, like the last time you said, I can still tie flies, and just give me a call and tell me what you need. Thanks.